All right, sports fan, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Well, folks, we are here. Conference championship weekend in the world of college football is finally upon us. This has been a phenomenal college football campaign that began about 3.5 months ago in August. And now the final road to get to the college football playoff for some of these teams is upon us. And for some teams, the college football playoff has already begun because we've had some teams in recent weeks who their respective backs were against the wall as far as keeping their playoff hopes alive. They're in postseason mode as of now. A lot of different scenarios are on the table for this weekend. We got some of these conferences where it's basically winner take all. Either you win your conference championship game or you will not be participating in the college football playoff. There are other conference championship games that are going to basically base or have a big factor in seeding for the college football playoff, especially when it comes to getting one of those coveted first round buys. On top of that, we got plenty of rematches from the regular season that are going to take place this weekend. And you wonder if the team that lost will be able to make the adjustments necessary to get past their opponent in a conference championship game, or will their opponent just be able to hold serve? But nonetheless, there is plenty of good action on tap for tomorrow and Saturday in the world of college football. And I want to get things started tomorrow with the Conference USA Championship game as you've got Western Kentucky traveling to take on Jacksonville State. And this is a quick turnaround for both of these teams. Why? Because they just met last week with Western Kentucky prevailing over Jacksonville State by 2. The venues have changed this time as these two clubs will now get it on in Jacksonville, Alabama. But you look at Western Kentucky quarterback Caden Veltkamp. 5 of his 10 interceptions this season have come in losses for the Hilltoppers. So can this Jacksonville State defense get to him? Jacksonville State was 3rd in the nation in rushing this season, and I expect another big dose of that. On the flips for Jacksonville State, also with that running game with quarterback Tyler Huff and Trey Stewart, I think they're going to be a big time impact in this contest. When you just faced a team a week ago, clearly each side is going to be very familiar with one another. So I want to see what adjustments are going to be made in this one. Nonetheless, Jacksonville State is favored by 5 at home in this one. I'm going to take them to win Conference USA by the score of 24-20. Now, a big one tomorrow night in the Mountain West is you've got 20th ranked UNLV traveling to the Smurf Turf to take on 10th ranked Boise. And of course, these two teams are the two best in the Mountain West. It's been like that for quite some time. We just saw Boise beat UNLV in Vegas last year to win the Mountain West Championship, and we just saw the Broncos go to Vegas earlier this year and get the best of the Rebels. And of course, Boise is looking to keep that dominance over the Rebels going. Why? Because the Broncos have won the last 8 in this series. Plain and simple for UNLV. Will they be able to slow down the dynamic running back, Ashton Genty? Now, I will say this about Genty. He had his second lowest output of the season the first time around that these two teams met. UNLV had a big time focus on Ashton Genty, but even with that said, he still ran for 128 yards against this Rebels defense. I'm putting the onus on the defensive player of the year for the Mountain West. I'm talking about UNLV linebacker Jackson Woodard. What are he and his 10 compadres on the defensive side of the football going to be able to do against Ashton Genty? Will they be able to slow him down? I'm looking at the quarterback play for both of these clubs. You got Haj Malik Williams, who's a phenomenal dual threat for UNLV, and then, of course, Maddox Madsen for Boise. And, of course, that's one thing about Boise. They're not going to go away from their bread and butter, which is running the football. And they are going to stick with Ashton Genty until something would have to drastically change. But nonetheless, if UNLV is going to put a ton of focus on Genty, I think Boise needs to make it happen in their play action game with Matson hooking up with the likes of Cameron Camper. Keep an eye out for Jaden Virgin Morgan coming off the edge, rushing that passer for the Broncos as he tries to get to Haj Malik Williams. But there's a lot of talent on UNLV. You look at Ricky White at wide receiver. You also look at Jaden Thomas at running back. And then, of course, you cannot say enough about the defensive playmaking ability of one Jackson Woodard. Barry Odom has a phenomenal team at UNLV. Okay, it's one of those where this is going to be the coldest game that the Rebels have played all season long. Both of these teams are very talented to win the Mountain West. The Broncos come into this game favored by 4 at home, and it's a playing game because the winner is going to the college football playoff based off of their rankings right now. The loser is not. And I'm going to take Boise to hold serve at home by the score of 31-24. Now, also tomorrow night, it's the American Athletic Conference Championship game. As you got 17th ranked Tulane traveling to take on Army, and it's going to be 28 degrees at kickoff tomorrow night in West Point. So for the Green Wave, they're looking to win the American for the second time in the last 3 years. And if Tulane is able to go on the road and get it done, I expect running back Makai Hughes to have a big time impact off of that, setting up the play action for quarterback Darian Mensah to hook up with the likes of wide receiver Mario Williams. Now, the defenses and the running games are going to be on display in this one. First, with Tulane, they have the 12th ranked defense in the nation. They also have 34 team sacks. Of course, you really don't have to worry about the team sacks too much in this one. Why? Because you know you're going to get a steady dose of Army and that triple option with quarterback Bryson Daly and, of course, running back Kanye Udo. But the Black Knights also have the 9th ranked defense. Will they be able to hold up against this Tulane offense? I think this is going to be a very physical game on both sides for both teams. Army has a lot of spirit. They give you everything they have. You look at linebacker Andon Thomas as well as Casey Larkin in that secondary. The Green Wave are favored by 5 points in the road in this one. I'm going to take them by 6 by the score of 30-24. Now, in the Big 12, something's got to give here because you've got 16th ranked Iowa State clashing with 15th ranked Arizona State in the Big 12 championship game. Of course, 4 teams this year finished with a record of 7-2 in the Big 12. BYU and Colorado, the other 2. Of course, all 4 cannot get to the conference championship game. And of course, the tiebreakers were decided by rankings in the postseason. But I say something's got to give here because the Cyclones have not won a conference championship game or conference championship period of any kind in more than 100 years. While for Arizona State, this is their first year in the Big 12. But you've got to go back to Bruce Snyder's Sun Devils of 1996. Of course, Jake the Snake Plummer was at quarterback. We had Fright Night Freeman on that defense. We also had the late, great Pat Tillman as well. And that was the last Arizona State team to outright win a conference championship. They won it that year. They were undefeated during the regular season. And of course, they had that thriller and heartbreaking loss to Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. But nonetheless, it's all on the line in this one for the Big 12. Why? Because the winner is going to the college football playoff, while the loser, plain and simply, is not. Now, you look at Kenny Dillingham's Sun Devils, and since October and their loss to Cincinnati, they have been a different team. I expect them to ride that wave of momentum with the likes of running back Cam Sketterbo, quarterback Sam Levitt, and of course, wide receiver Jordan Tyson. Arizona State can also get after you defensively, and that's going to be important in this one. The Sun Devils have 14 interceptions so far this season. Why do I bring that up? Because you look at Iowa State quarterback Rocco Becht, and you never know what you're going to get from him. Is it going to be the good Rocco Becht, or is it going to be the bad Rocco Becht? And if it's the bad Rocco Becht Saturday afternoon in Arlington, the Cyclones are not going to win the Big 12. There's talent for Rocco Becht to get the football to a wide receiver for Iowa State with Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. And then I look at Jontez Williams in this secondary for the Cyclones. Matt Campbell is going to have his team ready to play Saturday afternoon. Kenny Dillingham is also going to have his team ready to play. I think this is going to be a great game. Arizona State is favored by 2, but I'm going to take the Sun Devils by 10 in this one, 34-24. Now at Ford Field in Detroit, it's the Mid-American Conference Championship game as you have the Ohio Bobcats taking on the Redhawks of Miami of Ohio. Miami of Ohio, they're looking to become the first repeat champions of the MAC since Northern Illinois did it back in 2012. And they're also looking to join the Huskies for the most MAC championship game titles with 5. Now, Miami of Ohio beat the Bobcats 2 months ago, and of course, they're looking to do it again. In that contest, Miami of Ohio started fast with their offense, and then their 14th ranked defense put it on Ohio and really took them out of their realm, which is running the football. So I think the Bobcats want to start faster. They've got to get their run game going, and then they could, turn things over to their strong defense, which includes the likes of linebacker Matt Solopek and Brian Ugu on that defensive line. But keep an eye out for Miami of Ohio quarterback Brett Gabbard. And of course, if that name sounds familiar, he is the younger brother of former Missouri and NFL quarterback Blaine Gabbard. Also, keep an eye out for Red Hawk running back Keon Mosey, as well as wide receiver Reggie Virgil. I'll tell you like this. The Bobcats, they want to get their ground game going. And excuse me, I mentioned said Ohio running back Matt Solopak is actually Miami of Ohio linebacker Matt Solopak. But getting to these Bobcats, like I said, they've got to get their game going. They were 14th in the nation this season. Also, keep an eye out for the likes of a wide receiver, rather, Coleman Owen. And then defensively, I'm talking about Ohio with linebacker Blake Leak, as well as defensive end Brady Weaver. I think this time around, this game will be closer, but I'm still going to take Miami of Ohio in this one by the score of 27-24. Now, as always, all eyes are going to be on Atlanta for the first Saturday of December. Why? Because it's the granddaddy of them all in regards to conference championship games. And of course, when you think about the granddaddy of them all, you're thinking about the Rose Bowl. But in regards to the conference championship games, in my opinion, the SEC championship game is at the top. Why? It's the longest running conference championship game in college football, even going back to the BCS era. And even before that, it was a de facto playing game to get to the national championship game. And even in the playoff, it was a de facto quarterfinal game just to get to the semifinal. And as usual, there is plenty on the line Saturday in Atlanta when fifth-ranked Georgia clashes with second-ranked Texas. And of course, when I say there's plenty on the line, the winner of this game will get a first-round bye and possibly be the top seed in the playoff, while, of course, the loser will be going to the playoff. They just have to wait and see where they're going to be seated. But for these Georgia Bulldogs, this is their fourth consecutive trip to Atlanta for the SEC championship game. And maybe they're looking to keep a trend going because Georgia has alternated wins and losses in their last 3 games to Atlanta. So they lost this game to Alabama last year. They're hopeful this time around that things will change and they'll get a win over Texas. Now, 6 weeks ago, we saw the Dogs go to Austin and dominate the Longhorns. They won that game 30-15. And I'll tell you like this, the final score really was not indicative of how Georgia just went out there and bullied Texas. So there's a lot of questions that have to be asked and answered ahead of this rematch. First things first, how much do the Bulldogs have left in the tank following their overtime thriller against Georgia Tech last Friday? Georgia Tech gave Georgia all that they can handle and then some, but the Bulldogs found a way to pull it out in 8 overtimes. Nonetheless, in beating Texas the last time, Georgia was able to escape the fact that quarterback Carson Beck threw 3 interceptions. He cannot have a repeat performance of that, in my opinion, because if Carson Beck has multiple interceptions in this one, I think Georgia loses. Okay, but in his last 3 games, Carson Beck has been sharp when the Bulldogs have needed him to be sharp. 11 touchdowns to 0 interceptions in the last 3. The Bulldogs are hopeful that Trevor Etienne can be a go at running back to team him with Nate Frazier. And then if Georgia can get their running game going, they can get things going on the outside with wide receiver Arian Smith. But this Georgia receiving core has to do a better job of focusing, concentrating, and catching that football. They had a bad case of the dropsies against Georgia Tech last week. Now, this Georgia defense, will they be up to the task once more as far as shutting down this Texas offense? We saw Georgia Tech have their way running the football against Georgia last week. And I guarantee you, Texas is going to look to get their ground game going. Quinn Ewers needs to play big in this one at quarterback for Texas. And if Quinn Ewers gets off to a slow start, would Steve Sarkisian bench him in favor of Arch Manning? We got to wait and see. I expect Texas to try to come out and establish their run game with the likes of Quintravion Wisner, and then this third-ranked Longhorns defense, led by linebacker Anthony Hill. What are they going to be able to do against this Georgia front? They've got to go out there and try to set the tone in this one. This Texas defense has 18 interceptions on the season. Will they make some turnovers against Georgia? I think both of these teams want to go out there and make a statement early. Georgia wants to do it to Texas, and Texas wants to do it to Georgia. I want to see, because first and foremost, I think this game is going to be won in the trenches. Is Georgia's offensive line going to be able to impose their will on Texas? Is Texas's offensive line going to be able to impose their will on Georgia? Or will it be the defenses that go out there and make it happen early? Steve Sarkisian has made adjustments to his team, and I guarantee you he is preaching to Texas being more physical in this one, okay? But being more physical, preaching to your team being more to be more physical, and them actually going out there to do it are two different things. The first time around, it was a true home game for Texas, and it was a true home game for Texas against Georgia. This time around, it's going to basically be a de facto home game for Georgia. Atlanta is their home away from home, hop, skip, and a jump away from Athens. You got two former Nick Saban's assistants going at it out there. And at the end of the day, I look at this game. Texas is favored by 2.5 points, and I'm going to take the Longhorns by a touchdown in this one by the score of 31-24. Now, for the Sun Belt Conference Championship, you've got Marshall clashing with Louisiana. Now, the Sun Belt title game and the Louisiana Raging Cajuns are synonymous with one another, as the Cajuns are making their record-setting fifth appearance in this conference championship game. Now, Louisiana had an unimpressive, pardon me, let me rephrase that. They had an impressive regular season, which included a win over Wake Forest out of the ACC. I know that the Demon Deacons didn't finish the season with a winning record, but nonetheless, you still got the best of a Power Four school in their buildings or on their field, so to speak. And then, of course, they beat Texas State while they gave Tulane from the American Athletic Conference a run for their money. You look at Chandler Fields at quarterback, and of course, he's a no-go. He's out for the season after that injury, and now it's going to be the Ben Woolridge show. The Raging Cajuns have had the benefit of having Woolridge at quarterback for the last couple of games that they've won. Also, keep an eye out for linebacker KC Osai on defense for the Raging Cajuns. Now, for Marshall, they're looking to win their first conference title since they won Conference USA a decade ago. And if they're going to do it, keep an eye out for running back AJ Turner as well as linebacker Jaden Yates, and then Mike Green on this defensive line for the Thundering Herd, as he's had 16 sacks this season. But at the end of the day, the Raging Cajuns are favored by 6 at home, and I'm going to take them by a touchdown, 31-24. Now, another big one that a lot of people are going to be focusing on is in the Big Ten, as you've got third-ranked Penn State taking on Oregon, the top-ranked team in the nation, for the Big Ten championship game at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Now, this is Penn State's shot at redemption once again, because we saw the Nittany Lions lose earlier this year to Ohio State it looked like they weren't going to be getting to the Big Ten championship game. We knew that they were going to be getting to the playoff. But of course, once Ohio State lost to Michigan last week, it was the Buckeyes' second conference loss. Penn State finished 8-1 in the Big Ten. So they get the trip to Indianapolis to take on the Ducks. Now, of course, one thing that people are going to be talking about leading up to this game and throughout the contest is James Franklin's record against top five teams at Penn State. He's just 1-13. And I'll tell you like this, for Penn State and James Franklin to change that narrative, the Nittany Lions have to start fast in this one. They've got to get a big dose of their big tight end, Tyler Warren. You look at quarterback Drew Aller, he has not thrown an interception in his last four games. That trend has to continue, and I guarantee you there's going to be some packages for backup quarterback Bo Perbula in this one as well. You look at the running game for the Nittany Lions, and it's always got to be a factor with Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. But this Penn State running game, this Penn State offense, will they be able to keep things going, extend drives, help out their defense? Why? And I'm so why am I saying that? Because Penn State has one of the better defenses in the nation. Yes, but you want to keep Oregon's offense on the sidelines in this one. The Nittany Lions themselves, they're ranked fourth in the nation in defense. Abdul Carter is always going to be a big time name to keep an eye out for on this Nittany Lions defense. And his presence alone opens up things for other teammates. Also, keep an eye out for Penn State linebacker Kobe Kane to go out there and make an impact in this one. Now, for the Ducks, we saw them get denied winning the Pac 12 championship last season. Will it happen again in year number one? In the Big Ten, a lot of talent for the Ducks with Dylan Gabriel at quarterback, more than likely a Heisman finalist, and you've got running back Jordan James. And then this Ducks team under Dan Lanning, they're going to play defense as well. The Ducks are seventh in the nation defensively. Keep an eye out for linebacker Bryce Botcher as well as linebacker Matayo Oyongale. I'll tell you like this. This is going to be a tightly contested game. I feel like this. Whoever has to settle for field goals in the red zone is going to be the team that loses. The Ducks are favored by 3.5 points. The over under is 50.5. I'm going to take the Ducks on the slight over as far as point spread, how much they win by, but the over under, I'm going to take the under on that. I'm going to take Oregon by the score of 24-20. And finally, on Saturday night in Charlotte, it's the ACC championship game. You got 17th ranked Clemson taking on 8th ranked SMU. And of course, it's all or nothing for both the Tigers and Mustangs with a trip on the line to the college football playoff. And more than likely for the loser, they will not be participating in the playoffs. So for Clemson, will they continue to be the kings of the frat house in the ACC? And the reason why I say it is this: Tigers have won the ACC championship 8 times since 2011. Okay, and that's just a credit to the dominance of this program under head coach Dabo Sweeney. Now, for quarterback Cade Klubnik, he's been steady Eddie for the Tigers all season long. There's 5 interceptions. 2 of them have come in losses for Clemson this year. But I think I look at the workhorse for this Clemson offense, and I'm talking about running back Phil Maffa. He'll need to have a big night against this SMU defense. There's going to be some paint swapping in Charlotte come Saturday. You look at the likes of linebacker Barrett Carter for Clemson, as well as defensive end TJ Parker. Now, SMU has quietly taken care of their business all season long, and that's the reason why not a lot of people that follow college football have been paying attention to the Mustangs. But outside of a 3-point loss at home to BYU earlier this season, they've gone out there and they've taken care of their business. And now they have an opportunity to win their second consecutive conference title. They won the American last year. You look at this SMU offense with quarterback Kevin Jennings and running back Rashard Smith, and then linebacker Kobe Wilson on this defense. And this SMU defense, 37 sacks overall, along with 15 interceptions. Rhett Lashley is going to have his team ready to play on Saturday night. Dabo Sweeney is going to have his team ready to play on Saturday night. Clemson got a reprieve when Miami fell to Syracuse last Saturday. I think this is going to be a great game. I think it's going to be back and forth, but I'm going to take the Mustangs to win the ACC by the score of 31-24. So if my projections hold serve for this weekend in college football, I would say heading into the playoff, Oregon would be the top seed, Texas would be number two, SMU would be three, and then Boise would get the final first round bye at number four. I would then have Notre Dame at five, Tennessee at six, Ohio State at seven, and then Penn State at eight. And of course, you would say, well, Penn State's ranked third. How could they drop so far? Well, Notre Dame right now is ranked number six. They would clearly move up to that five slot. They can't go any higher due to the fact that they don't have a conference that they can win. That if Penn State were to lose to Oregon on Saturday night, that means the Nittany Lions would have two losses. They'd have a record of 11-2. Ohio State would also, but they would be 10-2. But nonetheless, Ohio State did beat Penn State in Happy Valley this season, so that would have to account for something there. Nine. You look at it, you still got Alabama in the mix, you still got Georgia, you still got Arizona State right there in the mix. So I think there's a lot that still needs to be taken care of. And then, of course, you've got the Hoosiers of Indiana that would also be in that mix as well. So there's a lot that could go various ways as far as things go. There are still a lot of scenarios on the table here. What happens if Penn State beats Oregon? How far would they move up? How far would the Ducks drop? If Georgia were to beat Texas, clearly Georgia would probably get a first round bye due to the fact that they won the SEC. How far would Texas then drop? There's a lot of different scenarios on the table based on who wins or who doesn't win this weekend. But nonetheless, like I've said before, and I'll continue to say it, it's one of the most fun times of the year. It's March Madness for college basketball come December for college football. Okay, that's the way it is. Great time of the year, very exciting time of the year. A lot of important games on the table, and like I've been saying all season long, these conference championship games are still going to be important. Why? Because you look at it, some first round buys are on the line, some playoff bids in general are on the line. But you know what? Hate to sound like a broken record, but that's why college football continues to be one of the best things going. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.